Okay, picture this. You leave literally everything you know behind for a mission among the stars. You're fully prepped for the psychological toll of deep space isolation, but you finally come back only to find out the world hasn't just moved on without you, it has actually, literally, replaced you. In this explainer, we're diving into a mind-bending sci-fi narrative called Echoes of the Original. Now, on the surface, sure, it's a really gripping tale about deep space travel, but at its core, it's a massive philosophical thought experiment that challenges our very definition of identity, who actually owns a life, and the relentless passing of time. It's an absolutely incredible premise, and the way it unfolds is going to make you question who we truly are.
7. That's it, just 7 years. Dr. Elena Voss experienced a mere 7 years in deep space aboard the Artemis Horizon. She was out there chasing the stars, venturing all the way out to the Oort cloud. And for those 7 years, her entire reality was just recycled air, synthetic meals, and staring out into the absolute blackness of space. She strapped into her command couch when she was 34 years old, and after a totally grueling mission, she returns at age 41. She's got a streak of premature gray hair, she's definitely got that deep weariness of a long journey. But mentally? Mentally, she's only been away for 7 years, so she's expecting your standard run-of-the-mill readjustment period for an astronaut returning home. But then, boom, she comes face to face with the brutal reality of relativistic time dilation. Because she was traveling so unbelievably fast, time actually moved way slower for her than it did back home. She gets back and discovers that 70 years have passed on Earth. 70. When her ship finally touches down at the new Mojave spaceport, gravity just feels way too heavy. The sky is completely choked with silent drone traffic, and the architecture doesn't even look human anymore. But the real gut punch comes from Director Patel, who delivers the crushing news. It is now the year 2097. The physics literally worked against them. The world Elena knew is buried under 7 decades of progress and, honestly, forgetting. Every friend, every colleague, her parents, they are all ancient or just gone. Let's trace this out to really understand the sheer, mind-numbing disorientation Elena felt. She launched in 2027, leaving her 12-year-old daughter Maya behind and, of course, promising she'd be back. Well, by the time she finally returns in 2097, that 12-year-old daughter is 81 years old. Just try to wrap your head around that for a second. But the actual pivotal moment in this whole timeline happened back in the 2030s. When communication delays with the Artemis Horizon exceeded all safety thresholds, the world basically assumed the absolute worst. They thought the mission went completely dark. And that assumption triggered a terrifying contingency plan.
See, when Elena's mission went dark, Earth was in a really bad place. They desperately needed a symbol of continuity because they had just suffered through the resource wars and this massive Pacific collapse. People needed stability. So Director Patel reveals a shocking, highly classified global contingency program known as Project Mirror. And guys, they didn't just build a statue or hold a nice memorial service. They decanted a full somatic clone of Dr. Elena Voss. This clone was memory imprinted from Elena's own neural scans and personal logs right up to the literal day of her launch. So this clone wakes up actually remembering crying in the shower the night before the launch. She wakes up with all of the original Elena's drive, her genius-level intellect, and most importantly, her intense love for her daughter.
And here is where the story shifts gears from a sad personal tragedy into a massive global paradigm shift. Her clone didn't just quietly slip away into the suburbs to raise Elena's daughter in secret. No way. Because she possessed Elena's brilliant mind and fierce determination, she absolutely thrived. Decades passed, and 3 years before the original Elena even made it back to Earth, Eleanor Voss became the leader of Earth. Seriously, take a moment to let that sink in. The clone, her exact biological duplicate, starting with the exact same brain and memories, is now the president of the Global Unity Council.
Imagine walking in your front door to find your life was lived completely without you, but by you. The original Elena is 41 years old, stripped of her family, and completely out of place in a future she doesn't understand. Her echo, who goes by Eleanor Voss, is now well over 65 years old, carrying this incredibly dignified, tempered composure that only comes from decades of global leadership. Eleanor actually has laugh lines and worry lines that the original Elena never even earned. It was Eleanor who changed Maya's diapers at 3 a.m. Eleanor sat through her college graduation. Eleanor published Elena's dark matter propulsion research, and Eleanor guided humanity through massive, world-ending crises. It's this incredibly stark physical and emotional contrast between two women who share the exact same soul, just separated by the weird physics of time. So obviously, the climax of their very first meeting in this highly secure facility overlooking the Pacific is this raw, totally heartbreaking accusation from the original Elena. "You stole my life." They're sitting across from each other, two identical women separated by 70 years and one impossible, crazy situation. Elena looks at this older version of herself, a version that raised her own child and achieved all of her wildest dreams, and she just feels completely robbed. I mean, it's civilizational scale identity theft in her eyes. The anger is palpable, and honestly, it's completely understandable. She sacrificed literally everything for her mission, only to come back and find someone else reaped all the rewards of her existence.
But I want you to really think about Eleanor's response here. It's powerful. She doesn't flinch at all. She tells Elena, "I lived it." There's a difference. She explains that she didn't ask to be woken up in a lab as some geopolitical insurance policy. But once she was awake, she didn't just passively occupy Elena's space. She did the grueling, everyday, exhausting work of living. She was the one holding Maya through terrible nightmares when everyone thought Elena was dead in space. She was the one compromising on global treaties to save millions of lives. She made huge mistakes, and she achieved massive triumphs. Eleanor is basically asserting that identity isn't just about your biological origins, it's about the accumulation of experiences, the choices you make, and the actual time you spend. She earned those years.
Well, 3 months later, this deeply personal family drama becomes intensely political. The secret of Project Mirror is leaked to the public by political factions who oppose Eleanor's long-term governance, and immediately, chaos ensues. You've got global protests, rampant conspiracy theories flooding the networks. The opponents see a golden opportunity here. They start demanding that the young, authentic, original Eleanor step forward to denounce and officially replace the older clone president. So suddenly, Eleanor is pushed into a massive corner. She is being offered everything back: her identity, unparalleled global power, and the ultimate validation of being declared the true Elena Voss. She has to make a choice right then and there: tear down her clone to reclaim her stolen life, or stand by a woman who is in essence herself.
And that brings us to the absolute defining moment of the whole crisis. Elena asks for a live global address right on the steps of the Unity Capitol. The whole world is watching, expecting her to denounce her older self. But instead, she completely shocks the world. She publicly rejects the presidency. She looks into the cameras and tells billions of people that Eleanor is not an imposter. She is a continuation. She openly acknowledges that Eleanor lived the life she couldn't, making incredibly tough choices she might have made differently herself. And then they stand united, physically holding hands on stage. It is this incredibly powerful rejection of human ego and a profound acceptance of their weird shared existence. Together, they prove that humanity is actually resilient enough to transcend even the boundaries of the individual self.
So, their story resolves, thankfully not in some bitter political rivalry, but as echoes of the exact same dream. Elena decided she didn't want to enter politics anyway. She went right back to what she loved. She started training the next generation of astronauts, teaching them the very real, very heavy true cost of chasing the stars. Meanwhile, Eleanor continued her incredibly steady governance of Earth. And beautifully, Maya, who is now in her 80s, actually finds a way to reconcile with both of her mothers, the one who left to chase the stars and the one who stayed behind to raise her. As for Elena and Eleanor, they form this incredibly unique, unbreakable bond. They literally argue like sisters and laugh like old friends, sharing a single soul across two very distinct lives. Many years later, looking out over the sprawling, rebuilt Los Angeles megacity, a 50-something Elena finally asks a 94-year-old Eleanor if she has any regrets about how this whole crazy thing unfolded, and Eleanor offers this incredibly beautiful reflection. They realize that together, they actually achieved way more than either of them ever could have done alone. One of them pushed the absolute boundaries of human exploration out in the stars, while the other held humanity together down on Earth when it was falling apart. Instead of viewing their duplicate existence as some sci-fi curse or a terrible theft, they eventually recognize it as this strange, miraculous gift. They literally got to live two fully realized human lives.
Which means this entire narrative really boils down to one single profound question. Eleanor tells Elena, reality is what you do with the time you're given. I was given 70 years, you were given 7. Neither of us is less real. So I want to leave you with this thought experiment to chew on. Is our identity rigidly tied to our physical uniqueness, or is it woven into the actions we actually take and the love we give during whatever time we possess? Because if someone else with your exact mind stepped in and lived out your days achieving your dreams, would your own experiences, however different they ended up being, lose their meaning?
It's a huge question that really challenges our deepest assumptions about purpose, identity, and reality itself. See you in the next explainer.